Trainwrecks, otherwise known as Monkey Man. He's a streamer. He's a pretty big streamer. I think he has like 1.6 million Twitch followers, and he's been around for a long time. But recently, I think to my knowledge, over the past few months or so, he's been doing a new type of content that I don't think is suitable for Twitch, and I don't think is something that should be encouraged or promoted or should be done at all, especially given the type of platform that Twitch is and the consequences this might have. So just to demonstrate what I'm talking about, here is one of the latest Trainwreck streams, and this is what they look like.
Let's get a full screen, but this time I want 3-in-1 bonus. No, you're fine.
Hell yeah. Real nice.
Michael, shut the fuck up. Thank you.
So all these thousands, these hundreds of dollars, that's not virtual currency. That's real currency. So what he's basically doing is he's gambling, and it's not like kind of, you know, like loot boxes where you might get some in-game item. It's not like, you know, maybe like poker where you're sure you can play for real money, but there is like a sort of like game aspect to it and some skill involved or whatever. It's straight up gambling. It's a slot machine basically. It's digital slot machines with real money essentially. And obviously it goes without saying that gambling is really, really harmful and is really, really dangerous and is a really, really risky behavior that ideally we should seek to limit and dissuade as many people as possible from doing. Now, right off the bat, I do want to say this, that Trainwrecks does take some steps towards, you know, resolving this or trying to make that less severe, and I think that that's good. So, for instance, I know that he often repeats that, like, hey, you know, you shouldn't do gambling. His titles look like this. 18 plus, he has this thing in his corner constantly: do not gamble, you will lose. And whenever he gets a big win, he plays like a 30-second ad where he's like, hey, so, you know, you might be making a lot of money, you might have saw me just make a lot of money or whatever, but in reality you will lose more money. I am down millions personally, so don't like get a super high off of this win or whatever. So he is doing quite a bit, like in the meantime, in order to try to let as many people as possible know that, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing this type of things. But regardless, I still think that giving this type of, I don't know, form of entertainment or activity such a big platform, especially on a platform that is predominantly for young people, is very, very harmful, and that is very, very insidious. If you see a big streamer with, I think Train sits like 40,000 viewers or something, might be a streamer that you look up to, that you know are entertained a lot by, and you see them doing this over and over, and that's like their content, that's what they, you know, enjoy doing, and you see them doing it, in some ways it's going to influence you. It's going to make you more open to the idea. You're going to want to maybe emulate the rush that you might see them experiencing when they're doing the thing that they're streaming. Now, in this case, it's not, you know, playing a given video game or pulling some, you know, interesting item from like a loot box or whatever. There are problems with that, but I think that gambling's pretty differently. In that case, in the case of Trainwrecks, the rushes from risking, you know, in Trainwrecks' case, thousands, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars into gambling and seeing what happens with it on a purely luck-based system. No element of, like, you know, control or strategy, or at least very, very little compared to a lot of other games. And I think that's really harmful, because I think it's encouraging and it's pushing and it's exposing a lot of young people, predominantly young people, towards a lot of the negative things that come with gambling. And you're probably going to see more people that gotta go to try this themselves. Now, why do I think that this is different from things like, you know, loot boxes or whatever, which I can see as like the primary thing being brought up? Well, I do think that there are negative aspects of loot boxes. I do think that a lot of the kind of chance-based mechanics of anything really, especially where it's like possible that you get like something really good, but most of the time you're not going to get anything cool. I think a lot of those are kind of predatory, right? They play on some very basic aspects of human psychology that make us make irrational decisions when it comes to the investment of our time and resources and stuff like that. And more often than not, as a statement of fact, it has to be the case for the system or the process or the market or whatever to function. Most people are going to lose. Most people are going to end up worse off as an effect of doing that. The difference is, however, when it comes to, you know, spending a lot of money on loot boxes and stuff, yeah, sure, it's definitely, it's 100% possible, and it does happen, that people waste a lot of money on loot boxes trying to get something and they don't actually get end up getting it, and that sucks. You know, it can set them back a little bit. But at the end of the day, there's something different between that and like gambling for real life money. You often don't see people becoming, you know, broke or bankrupt or, you know, becoming homeless or whatever because they spent like too much money in video game loot boxes. Because at the end of the day, even if you do win a lot, that money you put into it is not coming out. Exceptions can be made for things like, you know, CSGO loot boxes, where you make money and you spin things in order to get items that you can then sell and make real life money off of. And that, I think, I lump in with gambling, and that is also something I'm against, like the whole CSGO lotto thing, for instance. And obviously there were other scandals related to that when it comes to the faking of certain, you know, probabilities and stuff like that for sponsored creators or whatever. But even if there wasn't any of that, I would still have a problem with it. But at the end of the day, with most loot boxes you might have in a video game, where you get in-game items that you can't really sell and you keep, nobody's going to invest a bunch of that with the expectation that they're going to be better off economically afterwards. They're going to get something from it, sure, but that thing is going to be limited to the digital and virtual domain. They can never be like, I'm going to put money into this and I will be better off economically as a person afterwards. And that significantly raises the stakes by scales of magnitude. And that's why I think gambling, specifically this type of gambling with real money, especially in the quantities that are being discussed here, is especially insidious and is significantly different from, you know, virtual items that are just contained within the video game. Once again, with the exception of like CSGO things where you gamble for an item that you then sell forward for more money, expecting to make a profit. That, I think, is basically akin to just gambling for regular money. And yeah, I think that Trainwrecks, as a really, really, really big streamer with a large audience, a lot of them are going to be very, very young people, especially, who are very impressionable, who are likely to have like strong parasocial relationships with the streamer in question, with Trainwrecks, are going to be incentivized and are going to be exposed and are probably going to go into this type of like gambling behavior, which is not going to be a good thing for their lives whatsoever. If Train really enjoys doing it and he can do it responsibly for himself, and that's the decision he makes, sure, go for it. You can do that in your own time. Obviously, I would recommend against it because it's probably going to cost you a lot more. But if Train feels like he gets more satisfaction from, you know, the adrenaline and the game of it all, then he cares about the money that he loses because he's very wealthy, then he can do it. But I would hope that he would keep that private. On top of that, it also kind of develops a kind of second-hand gambling addiction, I suppose, among the viewers. Because sure, you're never going to get it as strong as if you're the one gambling with your own money. But even with the streams, right? Like, you're effectively like watching somebody and you're going to be there like, I'm just going to watch 5 more minutes. Maybe he'll get a big one. Maybe 10 more minutes. And then we'll get something really cool that happens. And maybe, you know, 15. Oh, we'll see. Oh, well, he already close there. You know, just got to keep going a little bit. I just want to see him end on like a win or whatever before I log off. And it's that type of behavior. It's that type of like mentality that does reinforce itself into very real gambling addictions that can have very destructive effects on people's lives in the future. And I think basically, all in all, to summarize, I think that Trainwrecks is encouraging that and increasing the likelihood of his audience engaging with that, no matter how many disclaimers he's doing. Now, I do think that disclaimers are good. I do think that they're excellent. I do think that they should be there, and I'm happy that Trainwrecks put them there. But at the same time, he's doing something, in my opinion, that is unethical in the most ethical way possible. So he is engaging in gambling on a really large platform, especially with a lot of young and very impressionable people, but he's doing it in a as responsible manner as you can, with all the disclaimers and the permanent things there, and the way he talks about it generally, and the way he does the play as well, and that he takes, you know, very specific breaks in order to try to minimize the psychological impact that gambling has. But regardless, I still feel that it's outweighed by all the negatives that come with it, and the overall negative effect, even though you have so many disclaimers. It would kind of be like, hey, if you had somebody, you know, maybe do like some forms of like illegal or very, very kind of like illegal activity, or maybe something that is dangerous for your personal health and well-being, even though you put a bunch of disclaimers. If you're doing something that is kind of easily accessible and that is possible to do, such as gambling is, it is an accessible thing to do, then you're probably going to get a cohort of people that start engaging in that activity on the basis of you influencing them and you exposing them to that. I think that's negative. Then there's other problems, which is that I think it's a bit it's a bit of lazy content, which is not the big deal. There's a bunch of other lazy content as well, and I guess if people find that entertaining, then I mean, there isn't anything necessarily wrong with lazy content, but it just feels like, you know, it's a self-fulfilling thing, right? You do something where what you're providing is you're just providing your money, and you make more money for providing your money, and what you're effectively doing is you're just like clicking a little spin wheel or whatever. Maybe there's a bit of entertainment in there as well. I know I watched a pretty decent segment of a stream yesterday when I found out about this, and there wasn't really much going on. And that's obviously not, I don't think that's like a great thing. I think we should move towards trying to, especially amongst bigger streamers, trying to keep like a kind of like hardworking attitude towards a lot of the things that we're doing, and at least not just like sit back. And that was one of the major problems I had with like the whole, you know, Master Chef meta and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's not really a big deal. I'm not gonna have like a massive issue with it. It's just like a minor gripe that I just want to point out here as well, as one of the things that that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about this. But the main thing is that, hey, it's an encouragement, indirectly, you know, non-intentionally, maybe from Train's parts, but nevertheless, it is going to influence more people towards engaging in gambling, and gambling fucking sucks, and it's not good. I don't like that Train's doing this type of content, but that's just my opinion, and yeah, thank you very much.